It's no secret legendary Pokemon are extremely strong, not just in their own universe, but in fiction as a whole. It's usually these guys that will be brought up the most with that whole 1 billion lions scenario as the reason the Pokemon just win. So today I wanted to go over the newest main staple legendary to the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games, Terapagos, and see where this guy falls in terms of canon strength in comparison to the other hard-hitting legendary Pokemon out there. So let's get right into it. First, a little background info about Terapagos itself. Supposedly, there used to be multiple Terapagos that existed during ancient Paldean times, but they were all thought to have went extinct as a result of seismic shifts in the earth. But it turns out one lone specimen was able to survive underground for all these years. These shifts in the earth are what presumably created the Area Zero underdepths where Terapagos slumbers, and possibly all of Area Zero as a whole, depending on how long ago it actually happened. Obviously, none of what I'm about to say right now is confirmed, but I'd like to think Groudon or Ting Lu was the one responsible for creating all these sudden shifts that created Area Zero. Terapagos is also the Pokemon responsible for the terrestrial phenomenon throughout Paldea, which of course allows Pokemon to change into any given single type and gets more power to matching moves of the type the Pokemon terrestrializes into. Same goes for the Stellar type as well, which doesn't change a Pokemon's type for weaknesses, but offensive moves are boosted even more than regular terrestrialization for one-time use per each type move. Plus the moves Terra Blast and Terra Starstorm will always be super effective against other Pokemon if said Pokemon using these moves is in their stellar state, and if the Pokemon being hit by said moves are terrestrialized themselves. Terapagos' terrestrial output is so strong that it alone in its slumbering state was able to keep all of those crystals in Area Zero powered to close to their full potential, allowing Professors Sada and Turo to use the energy from these crystals to not only create a time machine, an AI robot version of themselves that was so advanced that it was able to gain its own separate will from the original professors, and the Terra Orb, a device imbued with terrestrial energy that allows trainers to terrestrialize one Pokemon once per battle without needing any kind of direct exposure to Area Zero or Terapagos prior to using. Granted, direct exposure to Terapagos makes things a lot more convenient for a trainer since they'll no longer need to recharge their Terra Orbs in between battles. Imagine if this direct exposure were strong enough to allow more than one Pokemon per team to terrestrialize. A bit scary, but also kind of cool to think about. Terapagos is also capable of using time traveling on other creatures without needing any kind of direct contact with them. Obviously, Celebi can time travel as well, but it seems to work a bit differently because Celebi itself is the one traveling through time and presumably needs to be making direct contact with someone else to allow them to travel with them through time as well. Whereas we don't know if Terapagos can physically transport itself into a different time period or not, evident by the fact that it was able to bring Paradox Pokemon into Area Zero several centuries ago when Heath was down there exploring. Depending on the version of the game you're playing, he jotted down passages about encountering the fierce Great Tusk or Iron Treads. Great Tusk being from the prehistoric past, while Iron Treads is from the distant future. Then of course the whole thing with the crystal pool where it brought past versions of the real Sada and Turo to your location so you could chat with them, where said conversation ended up creating a time paradox that likely resulted in the core events that drove the game's story forward from the get-go, like the professors becoming super obsessed with their own work on the time machine and such, creating the AI versions of themselves and never really spending time with their son. Speaking of the time machine, since it was built using the energy of a dormant Terapagos and was powerful enough to spawn as many Paradox Pokemon as it did in Area Zero, I think there is an argument to be made that if it wanted to, the awoken Terapagos could just spawn an entire army of them if it chose to do so. Granted, I've also seen a theory rolling around on Twitter that Terapagos' time-traveling powers are rooted in the desire of others around it. Like, the respective professors wanted so badly to see more Paradox Pokemon in Area Zero after fixating on Heath's work, so Terapagos sensed this and made more of them spawn down there. But that's just a theory. That's the tricky thing about terrestrialization and Area Zero stuff in general. Even now, with that side of the story being more than likely wrapped up and not getting any more in-depth content in the future, there's still a lot of unknowns at play. Which on one hand does make for fun discussion to hear the different theories people come up with, but on the other hand, it can make it a tad difficult to properly and truly scale Terapagos for a video like this. Terapagos has 3 different forms too. The baby form, the Terra form, and the stellar form. With its stellar form obviously being its strongest, I'm just going to be focusing on that more than the other 2 here. I do want to clarify because part of me was thinking about this before making this video. Terapagos does not need to be exposed to a Terra Orb to turn into stellar form in the canon universe. It's not directly stated, but I can assume the reason Kieran needed to do it in the Indigo Disc was because Terapagos had been sleeping for so long and wasn't able to get a proper grasp on its power yet. Plus, Heath literally drew a picture of stellar form Terapagos in the Scarlet/Violet books over several centuries ago, and the Terra Orb wasn't even invented until Sada and Turo's time in modern day. Baby Turtle being sleepy or out of practice this seems like the most logical explanation here. Stellar Terapagos was shown to be strong enough to create cracks in the cave's surface mid-transformation, as well as completely break a Master Ball apart, as shown when Kieran tried to recall it. Though these cracks in the earth didn't seem to be super strong because they didn't really show the surface of Paldea getting affected by it. It wasn't on the same level as Groudon or Kyogre doing their droughts and severe thunderstorms. Like when that was happening, we were shown a bunch of different parts of the region getting affected by it. And the same thing with Palkia and Dialga when they were unleashed too. Like it was, their power was spreading through the entire region. This wasn't a thing with Terapagos. As for the Master Ball thing, this is something I've been seeing a lot of people bring up because on paper, it is a pretty impressive feat. Even God itself, Arceus, can still be caught by a Master Ball. This is honestly a bit of a tricky thing for me to judge because, yes, it's crazy this thing just breaks a Master Ball. However, this technically isn't anything new when it comes to other Pokemon that can naturally terastalize without Terra Orb usage. All of those random Pokemon you'll see out in the wild with these special Terra types and the ones in raid dens, regardless of their star rating, none of these Pokemon can just be caught straight up at the beginning of an encounter, even with a Master Ball. So it's not necessarily unique to Terapagos having that durability to the ball. But at the same time, Terapagos is the one responsible for allowing these Pokemon to become this way and have this weird resistance to catching until they take a certain amount of damage. But even still, when it comes to Terapagos having to go against other legendary Pokemon in a 1v1 fight, for example, with no trainers getting involved, something like the Master Ball or any other kinds of balls are almost completely irrelevant when you get right down to it. Hence why I don't think that feat is all too impressive for the topic at hand here. So, where would I place Terapagos strength-wise relative to other legendary Pokemon? Well, real quick, I want to give credit to JPR Poketrainer 98 for this tier list he did about a year ago, scaling the legendary Pokemon by their canon powers. I agree with damn near everything he said in that video, so I'm pretty much using his final tiering order as my baseline on where to put Terapagos in the grand scheme of strength. Definitely check out that video if you haven't seen it yet, it's very well done. I'll start by saying I don't think it can be on the same level as Arceus. Despite Arceus technically being a mythical and not a regular legendary, I still want to bring it up here since it's become the main baseline of strength in the Pokemon universe due to its godlike role in said universe. Plus, both of these Pokemon have a lot of similarities, like their powers with type changes and both being normal type naturally. If the idea of Arceus shaping the universe is still at play here, then it's thanks to it that Terapagos even exists. So, yeah, kinda hard to put him above something like that. The same goes for ones like Dialga, Palkia, Giratina. These three are essentially responsible for keeping the entire world's existence in order. Not quite on par with the likes of Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza either. Initially, I thought those three would have a tough matchup against Terapagos lore-wise because of Terapagos' stellar Terraform Zero ability, but once I read closer, I realized while it does stop weather and terrain from being active once per battle, Kyogre and Groudon in canon can more than likely just reactivate it or something. It just wouldn't be as powerful, I suppose. It is kind of hard to say though. I'm hoping this ability is explored further in the anime because I'd be super curious to see how it would work against other weather and terrain-related Pokemon with no trainer involvement. Xerneas and Yveltal represent life and death itself. I don't think I need to really go too much further on that one. Needless to say, I don't feel right putting Terapagos on the godly level tier or earth-breaking tier. If anything, I'd put him around a tier below. Probably stronger than Ho-Oh and Lugia, but it's hard to say if it's on the same level as Mewtwo, Regigigas, or Kyurem. With how it created cracks very deep in the earth, provided a unique energy source for an entire region that was even abundant enough to be used elsewhere like Kitakami and Unova, and time travel entire groups of powerful Pokemon to present day it's nothing to scoff at. But because multiple of these Pokemon were said to exist at some point, and with all the other just feats at play with these previous legendary Pokemon, I don't think it can really stand on par with these other legendaries that are truly one of a kind in terms of rarity, but unique powers as well. It's like I said earlier, there's still just so much we don't know about this Pokemon, so it's very possible it could be stronger than we've been led to believe. Maybe future Pokedex entries in the later generations to come will give us more of a better understanding on other things Terapagos may be capable of, assuming Game Freak doesn't want to completely get rid of terastallization forever in future games. The anime could do that too, actually, since they seem to be setting baby Terapagos up to do something later on, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with how strong I feel Terapagos is. If you disagree, don't be a stranger to tell me why, I would love to hear why you think it's maybe stronger or weaker than I think it is. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more content like this in the future, but for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.